Hello, hello, Black women. Happy Friday, everybody. Okay, so tonight I want to talk about trauma and relationships. Amen. Specifically, how and what and who you are attracted to can often be a result of your nervous system, right? And not necessarily what is safe or even aligned. Amen. Uh, Full disclosure, I typically like to keep these live videos around an hour, but I feel like I'm going to go over today because I have time on tonight and I want to take my time with this one specifically. So, if you are a Black woman who has ever felt like she was drawn to people, to places, or to things that are intense and activating and exhausting and depleting, this video is for you, especially if you feel like you are stuck. All right, that's who I'm talking to. Tonight, I want to talk about why this happens. I wanna talk about what your body actually has to do with this happening to you, how you can recalibrate what you are drawn to, and most importantly, how to curate, as in intentionally select on purpose relationships, people, places, things that support the life that you are creating. Does that sound good? Sounds good to me. Okay, so if you are new here, hello, my name is Rushni, aka Glamazini. I am a certified integrative life coach. Okay, I'm also a content creator. I help Black women heal, I help them amplify their gifts, and I help them create lives that they love that wildly love them back. If that's you, welcome. I am live on, let's see, YouTube and Facebook tonight. No LinkedIn. No LinkedIn again. Didn't do it last week. Not doing it this week. If you are into creating lives that you love, a life you love, and weekly videos on healing and the like, please subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Glamazini. Follow me on whichever platform you are watching on and like the video. Wherever you are watching in the world, drop a pineapple emoji in the chat and let me know where you are watching from, even if you watch this on the replay. Hello, Mara. Hello. Did you change your name? That's like a bunch of letters and numbers now. Okay. All right, you guys. Quick housekeeping before I go on. The next cohort of my Create Your Life virtual planning retreat starts on June the 5th. If you would like to learn more or enroll, the link is in the information box. It is bit.ly/virtual planning retreat. And the December ladies, we have calls coming up this Sunday and next Sunday, and we will have more on that later. Okay. All right. So I think I call this video How Trauma Can Show Up as Attraction. How trauma can show up as attraction. Before we get into the topic, the reason that I'm starting with this particular topic is because in the month of February, I am going into a theme, and the theme for February is creating your relationships. Create your relationships. Yeah. Not just romantic relationships, you guys, although this video is going to lean heavy on the romantic because I feel like that's where a lot of us get stuck. Okay. Ask me how I know. All right. But also all sorts of relationships, right? Your family, your friendships, your job, all the relationships, the way that you relate to things, right? I want to talk this month about being intentional and having agency in all of them, right? How you choose them, how you vet them and discern, when you stay, when you leave, when you decide who, what, where, what gets your access to you, who gets your time, who gets your energy, your money, your care, who gets access to your work, your labor, or your world. Okay, that's what we're talking about all February. So if that sounds good to you, meet me here all month long. I'll be talking about it here as well as in my coaching community, right? Creating your relationships mean that you have to stop going on autopilot. Stop going on autopilot. When I was younger, One of my things that I was so proud of, which if I could go back in time and tell a younger version of me, I was that it was not healthy. I was so proud of kind of like going with the flow. I have always been a very like, you know, 60s free lovey type of spirit. And I was so proud of not having any oars in the water, just kind of living life and seeing what happens. And when I tell you that those sorts of thoughts are the things that got me in the bushes, because if you don't row your boat ends up in the bushes. Okay. So when you are creating relationships and a life that you love that is healthy, you have to stop going on autopilot, especially if you are a person that has been through trauma, which I'm going to get to in a second. It means you have to stop letting your history and your habits and your guilt and your shame and your blame and your survival patterns make decisions for you. Okay? Make decisions for you. You have to start learning how to choose things intentionally, deliberately, to curate them like a museum, a curator with self respect, self honoring, right? Not self less, self full, with alignment and clarity, and most importantly, with awareness, acute awareness of your nervous system and how it matters in your life. Okay. So I'm going to be aiming at that all month long. All month long. Come along with me. Now, oh, let's see what Mara's saying. Mara says, I just realized the trauma pattern. I chose jobs and places to live and work based off of survival and not alignment. This life came on time. Well, listen, girl, you done preached the whole life because that's exactly what we are talking about on tonight, boo boo. That is not chemistry. That is cortisol. Amen. Ask me how I know. Okay, so if there's one thing that I wish I understood back in the days back in the day as your girl is breathing on 50's neck. Let's look at it. We have 88 days. I have a timer. We have 88 days before I turn 50. Yeah, I went on a museum tour earlier and I was asking all the questions. I thought I was being disruptive, but the people on the tour were like, "We like you because you asking the questions that need answered." I was up in there asking all the questions. When I was done, the lady who was the tour guide also turned out to be the operations manager, and I was chatting her up in the, gift shop, because, when I want to, I could be a good time. Anyway, I was mentioning to her that I used to work at Anheuser-Busch, and I was telling her back in the day, whatever year it was, I was like, "Yeah, like 2001, 2002 or something like that," and she was like, "I'm sorry, how old are you?" And I was me, I was like, "Well, y'all don't know me. I'm a head on the internet." But I was like, "I will be 50 this year." That woman said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I thought you were 30 something years old." And she is the second person this week to tell me that. Not that I care, because, I mean, 49 don't look too bad either. So I'm not ageist. But I just thought that was hilarious. 30 something. 30 something? Anyway, that's not what this video is about. Let's focus. Okay. I want to set the captives free, right? This is something that I wish that 30 something year old that everybody thinks I am actually knew is the topic I'm going to talk to you about today. If I could go back in time and speak to my younger self and tell her one thing and one thing only, it would be this video. I'm punching my hand. I'm getting aggressive. Yes, Mara. Okay. The people are mistaking me for a youth. And listen, I have seen the aging on my skin. Pre pandemic, I absolutely looked buttery smooth and ageless. But something about the pandemic, perimenopause, loss of collagen, I'm doing my best, but also I can see the aging, but maybe they cannot. That woman was genuinely confusioned. What she said, 50 and what? I was like, years, girl? Anyway, but I mean, if you like it, I love it. Anyway, if I could go back, this is the thing I would tell everybody. I tell myself. I'm telling y'all because wisdom to me is the highest form of learning. Yeah. Over seeking knowledge about it and over experience and whatever else there is. Getting the wisdom and applying it without having to, but not putting your hand on a stove and burning it is the highest form because somebody else told you not to. And that's what I'm trying to do. Right. This would have saved me years of confusion, years of pain, harm, self-doubt, all the things. If I knew this, what is that, Rushni? If I knew that trauma and stress responses and learned attachment patterns can masquerade as chemistry and love. Trauma, stress responses, and learned attachment patterns. Listen with your listening ears, especially if you're a young person. Listen to me. I'm trying to help you, Black woman. They can masquerade as chemistry and even love. I'm going to say it again. Trauma. My God, on today, I felt it. I put the good stuff in here. And no, not alcohol. Sparkling water with a little strawberry true lime. Okay, because I knew I was going to be out here cutting up tonight. And stress responses. Listen to me. And learned attachment patterns can have you out here thinking that you got a quiver in your liver and that you in love and that you in love. And so many of us do not realize this until we have already paid the highest price to learn said lesson, right? I'm going in my business for this video because it's going to help the people. Myself, Rushni. Listen, I'm already 11 minutes in and I ain't even really started the video. So I know I'm going to be taking my time. Get something to drink, y'all. Okay. Myself, Rushni Glamazini, that you are looking at, learned this particular lesson in the hardest way one could learn it. And I'm here to share with you what I've learned so that you don't have to learn it that way. So that you don't have to learn it that way. Hello, Tasha. Tasha says, I just realized I've never had a job that aligned with me. It has always been survival. How do I fix this? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Okay. I actually had never had a job that was aligned with me until several years ago. That's not true. That's not true. I just realized that there was a few things. Let's say this. I was not intentionally choosing jobs that were aligned with me. I was just choosing any old thing. And so a lot of times I had to disconnect myself, which is why I can give you guys this information. So let's talk about it. First of all, I'm going to give you guys a bit of context that I've only mentioned once publicly in a previous video, but I'm starting to share it now. Yes? If you look around me, you notice that doesn't look like Rushni's background. She been in a different background. The backgrounds are changing. Yeah, the backgrounds are changing, boo boo, because I am currently in a separation for my marriage. I'm separated, you guys. If you haven't figured that out, you don't have to figure it out. That's what's happening. Okay. This is not the house background, but the other background that you guys see me in that looks like an empty room with the Puerto de Santa Maria poster in the background and my vision board on the wall. That's my office that I was in. Okay. So I'm separated. And the reason why I can confidently talk about this topic is my marriage was a trauma bonded relationship. My God, on today. My. So not only have I experienced it in friendships, I've experienced what I'm about to talk to you guys about in workplace relationships, careers, like Tasha just asked about. I experienced it in my marriage and I experienced it in my family of origin. It's just listen, that's where it came from. But anyway, we're ahead of ourselves, okay? Which is why I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna take my time. I'm on my way out of it finally. Mm, thank you. My God. Mm, whew. And I'm grateful for how far I've come. Okay. It's been really hard. Not gonna lie. It's been long, right? And I'm living through it as I speak to y'all right now. However, I kinda have a policy of not, like, putting things that are not healed enough to sustain conversation and scrutiny from other people out on the internet, which in my mind is wisdom, okay? Pay attention, that's wisdom. However, I have been going through this for so long. I feel healed enough to have this conversation and share this point and share some of these hard-learned gems with any Black woman who will listen to me. Listen to me, sis, okay? So, I'm not one for spectacle content. That's what I call spectacle content. The when people throw all their stuff out on the internet to get views and stuff. I am the president of Team Tell Some, Keep Some. I don't know if y'all remember when my son, when I was pregnant with him, and when y'all found out what y'all need to find out. Okay, okay, that's how I live my life. Okay, yeah, y'all are out there. I am in here. Okay, so I'm not sharing this information to be anybody's spectacle. I'm sharing it for context. I'm sharing it for credibility, and I'm sharing it because I need to be able to include some of my story in this without dancing around it. I don't have it in me anymore. So let's do it. Thank you for my pineapples, my love, and my light, Tasha. I'm sure I've told you that Natasha is my middle name. So, all right, you guys, let's go. What's a trauma bond? That's the first thing I want to go through. What is a trauma bond? Let's start before that. What is trauma? Roshni, what is trauma? Right? I looked up the American Psychological Association's definition of trauma, and it is any disturbing experience that results in significant fear, helplessness, dissociation, confusion, or other disruptive feelings intense enough to have a long lasting effect on a person's attitudes, behaviors, and other aspects of their functioning. Traumatic events include those harmed by human behaviors, i.e., rape, war, industrial accidents, etc., as well as nature, earthquakes, hurricanes, etc., right? And often can challenge an individual's view of the world as just, as safe, and as predictable, right? And of course, trauma also includes physical trauma, which is what most of us often think of when we think of trauma, like an actual physical injury, like a person gets a burn or they get a concussion or they break their leg or something. That's not the trauma I'm talking about. And I am not versed in any physical trauma in relationships. So if that is something that you are experiencing, what I will tell you is to reach out to a trained resource to get help. I cannot give you any information on that. I cannot, okay? That's outside of my wheelhouse. I am talking more about mental, spiritual, emotional trauma. Yeah? Trauma is what happens when you have an experience, a disturbing experience, and that experience overwhelms your ability to process it and heal from it. Okay? That's what's happening right now. Hello, Marissa. I'm taking my time tonight, okay? I'm taking my time. Victoria said, I definitely have a trauma bond from an old friend from high school. Yeah, listen, you guys, I'm about to tell some of my business, but I started out in a family of origin that gave me trauma. And from that family of origin trauma, I went into workplaces that were trauma bonds. I had friendships that were trauma bonds. My relationship is a trauma bond. I'm getting out though. Continue to pray for the saints. Okay. She working on it. Okay. And that's why I shared that because I was like, I need y'all to know that I ain't new to this. I am true to this. I am true to this. And I'm trying to help the people. Follow me as I follow Christ about these things. All right. So I personally believe that trauma can live in a person's body. I believe that trauma can live in a person's mind. I believe that trauma can live in a person's spirit, right? And I think that when you are traumatized, it can affect how you think. It can affect how you feel. It affects how you see yourself, your self perception, and it affects how you relate to people, places, and things, how you choose and decide what you think is possible for yourself and what you believe is just or safe in this here world. It it affects and permeates the entire picture, your whole lens. is skewed based off of the disturbing experience that resulted in significant fear, helplessness, dissociation, confusion, etc., disruptive feelings that are intense enough, right? And it begins to skew how you are living your life, the lens you are looking out of, and how you perceive what is possible for you and what is safe and what is not, right? Trauma is not necessarily only about what happened to you. It's about how you learned to survive what happened to you. Yes? It's not because 2 people can have the exact same experience, and one person can be traumatized and the other person not traumatized. And I wanna say this, do not let somebody tell you that an experience you had is not traumatizing to you. We are all unique individuals. We are all constructed entirely different, different bodies, different minds, different spirits, different ways of showing up in the world. The whole we're like snowflakes. Another person could have the exact same experience you have. You see this on the internet all the time. And I just be wanting to tell people to shut up, but I don't, um if somebody else went through what you went through and they seem fine, first of all, you don't know what's going on the underside, underneath the hood. So they might not be fine. That might be their representative. And 2, trauma is different for everyone. So it's about how you learn to survive the disruptive experience that you had. Your body could have very well learned to stay on alert, right? You stay on alert because now you realize this thing is dangerous. If you had put your hand on a stove and you never thought new stoves were hot, but now you see that your hand got burnt up, every single time you see a stove now, you are flinching or you're paying attention in a way that you never have paid attention because you don't want to get burned, right? And that might be from just seeing stoves, that might be from seeing anything that looks like a giant box. It could run the gamut, right? So your body learns how to stay alert and it's trying to keep you from danger so that you can survive, right? Likewise, if you have a traumatic experience, in order to learn how to survive it, your mind can learn how to make sense of what happened. This is important, you guys. Rationalize it, intellectualize it. My God, on today. Whew, that's me. I'm gonna go into this a little bit more. Decode it. It's a puzzle. You got to figure it out. All of that is you trying to feel safe, right? You're in a maze. It seems disorienting. It seems confusing. And you try to put the pieces together so that you can get yourself to perceived safety. So your mind learns to make sense of things and all of that. Spoiler, you trying to make sense of something that don't make sense, but listen, we're gonna get to there. Okay. I'm not saying that you know that. That's one of the lessons I've learned. Okay. You can also learn, your spirit could learn what to expect when you are traumatized. What to expect. What do you mean by that, Rashni? I mean, you take on a whole slew of unspoken beliefs that you now carry around with you, right? You are traumatized in some way and you believe this is just how jobs are. This is just how relationships are. This is just how churches are. This is how closeness feels, right? To belong, I have to contort myself. To belong, I have to hide myself. To get my needs met, I have to pretend to be something else, someone else, right? I got a code switch. Your spirit learns what feels normal. And more importantly, it learns what you believe, you perceive is possible for you. So you might be seeing other people out in the world living their lives and you see them seemingly doing something, but you're like, yeah, that's for them. That's not, I don't really get that because the trauma shaped how you need to move through the world in your mind to feel safe. So over time, these are the lessons that will turn into the patterns in your life and in your relationships, in your workplace, in your friendships, in your everythings. Okay? In your everything. Tasha said, I'm so glad this is recorded. I will need to listen over and over. There is so much to unpack. Yeah. And like I said, I'm going to go over an hour tonight, you guys. I'm moving slow. I'm gonna take my time on this one because it's gonna help somebody. It helped me. It helped me writing my notes out. Okay. It was kind of a good time. I was over here writing out an essay so I can make sure that I covered what I needed to cover. Okay. Covered what I needed to cover. So Now that we know what trauma is, what's a trauma bond, Rashni? A trauma bond is not a psychological term, at least not like a official, like APA psychological term. But it's a term that was coined by psychologist Patrick Carnes is his name. And it's basically a commonly used term for an unhealthy attachment that forms inside of a traumatic pattern. So you have an unhealthy attachment that has formed based off of the trauma, the disturbing experiences, right? You have an unhealthy attach. You are attached. The attachment has a foundation of traumatic patterns, right? You're attached to this workplace. You're attached to this church home. You're attached to this family dynamic. You're attached to this partner. You're in this friendship, right? And it's all based off of a foundation of trauma, right? In adult relationships, trauma bonds are often, listen to me, I gotta say, a result of unhealed early childhood wounds. My God, on today. If somebody had said that to me back in the day, I can't imagine. When you become an adult, what you are drawn to, what you are attracted to, what you are bonding to, what you feel is close and connected, if you have been through trauma and you have not done any work to heal it, is most likely just a continuation, you guys, of a early childhood disrupted attachment wound, an attachment style that is unhealthy, something that you got from a primary caregiver or something early in life in formative years, and it created an unhealthy pattern that you used to survive. No judgment to little you because she did her best to survive, and she obviously did because you're watching me and listening to me. But she came up with an unhealthy way to avoid the stove. You see what I'm saying? And now you're an adult and you doing the same thing. You doing the same thing. And that's why you are in these trauma bonds. All right. Um, Trauma bonds are rooted in this principle. This is super important. This is another thing that was like revolutionary when I learned it because I was living it and didn't know that I was so disoriented, you guys. I was living this, didn't know there was vocabulary for it, didn't know that it was quantified by professionals. No idea. I was just in there having this experience. Trauma bonds are rooted in a concept called intermittent reinforcement. Yes? What is that, Rashni? It is a cycle of repetitive stress and harm followed by temporary relief, followed by stress and harm, followed by relief, stress and harm, relief, right? What that means is your workplace, your partner, your friendship, wherever, it does not stay consistent. I wish somebody had told me this. My God. It is not consistently safe. It's also not consistently harmful, right? It's kind of going back and forth. Sometimes it's consistent, then it's inconsistent. Then one day you guys have affection. Next day there's a bunch of tension and y'all arguing. Then the friend apologized to you. Then next after that, it's a bunch of confusion. Then they make a promise and you believe them because you're an empath and you believe people. And then boom, a bunch of emotional pain. One week is a good week, next week is a bad one. The week after that, they're the most caring, amazing person you've ever encountered in your life. Then there's neglect. They act like they don't see you. You on an emotional roller coaster. You up high in the sky. Then they pull it away. Okay? And you crash down to the ground. They constitute a pattern of care. You rely on that pattern of care. You come to expect that pattern of care. And then one day you go to tap into the repetitive pattern of care that they have established and you just bust your head wide open because it's not there. You're close, then you're not close. It's a vicious cycle. And that cycle, obviously and rightfully, you guys, Disorients you and overwhelms. Yeah, Tasha. Disorients you and overwhelms. Why? Your nervous system. You know, I like to talk about the nervous system. Y'all know the brain's gonna come up, nervous system about to come up. I'm about to probably bring in the meat suit. Okay. Y'all, the greatest hits are coming. This happens, you guys, when your nervous system is overwhelmed. You start thinking, this relationship is trash. This friendship, this woman is crazy. These people at this job got me all the way F up. I know this man has been tripping. Okay. And then all of a sudden, you guys have a great week. The most wonderful their promises are made, right? You're on an emotional high. And then you're like, that's the relief stage. These are in stages. So then you get confused. You start doubting the fact that you had the bad experience or that it was as bad as it was. And you start second guessing yourself, right? The analogy that I love to bring up that helped me so much when I was learning this for myself back in the day is a slot machine, right? And there are studies that show that intermittent reinforcement works in animals as well. It also creates the nervous system spikes, the cortisol spikes, the stress responses, the confusion, the disorientation. So don't feel bad if what I'm describing you have experienced. I have experienced it. And it is just there's a physiological component to this as well. Okay. But think of a slot machine. A slot machine is designed to capitalize on intermittent reinforcement. What does that mean? You pull the lever and you don't win every single time. And you can't predict when you're going to win. So you keep pulling the lever in hopes that this will be the time that you win. And on the rare moment that you actually get a little change come down in the tray, I don't know, because I've never done slot machines, right? You feel power. You have a rush of something. You feel elated. There's like, "Oh, I did it. I did it." Even if you pull that lever 50 times before that, and then you can't help but pull the lever again, and it becomes addictive because your system starts chasing that feeling, right? The feeling of relief after the intermittent reinforcement and unpredictability. So, relief after a stress response can start to feel like intimacy. Mm. Even when the relationship you are in is, for all intents and purposes, objectively unstable. And you know it, right? Trauma bonds are often talked about in romantic relationships, but a trauma bond can be anywhere, you guys, any relationship. You can have a trauma bonded friendship. I've had it. You can have trauma bonds in your family, and that's probably where you got that's the origin story right there, right? Dysfunction all up in the camp, right? I've had it. You can then choose because your trauma, unhealed trauma, unaddressed trauma will shape the lens, and you can choose to go into spiritual spaces that become a trauma bond. There's so much unhealthy stuff in churches. I listen, I'm a Christian. I don't have background in other religions. I'm curious and I am a learner. So I know a lot about some like not a lot. Let me take that back. I know a good deal, but I would never speak on other religions because I don't understand them enough to speak on them. But I speak on the Christianity, okay? I'm stocking a study Bible right now. When I was moving in here, I realized, y'all, I got 6, 7 Bibles. I was like, I just had to give away 2 of my, like, most unused Bibles, the newest ones. I was like, "Now why do I have 6?" 7 because one of them's, like, one of those recorded ones, like the audio ones from back in the day. But I was like, "Why do I have 7 Bibles?" Like, your girl was in it, okay? There's a lot of traumatic things that are promoted in some of these spaces. You can have a trauma bond at your workplace. If you are aware of the Job Liberation Summit that works to help get Black women out of toxic job situations, those toxic jobs are often trauma bonds for us. And I say us because I worked in jobs that were just drained, that felt like I worked in jobs where my boss was cussing at me. I worked in corporate jobs, okay? I'm not in the alleyway. I'm in a corporate office and he taking me just whatever. We don't go into all that, okay? Anywhere, a trauma bond can happen anywhere that there is inconsistency, unmet needs. That's where the trauma bond is happening, right? Inconsistency, unmet needs, triggering childhood unhealed um, wounds that you have not learned how to approach from a healthier way. Victoria said, "This sounds like my dating experience." Girl, this is my whole life so far. Okay, you said in your 20s. That sounds like a blessing. I was just watching a TikTok about a woman who was married and got divorced, and she was sharing her story or whatever. And somebody in the comments said, "Getting divorced when you're young is such a flex." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is such a 2026 thing." As Gen X, getting divorced when I was young was not such a flex. I was not in the space of the I'm playing with my lip glosses, you guys. I was not lucky enough to get the 2026 messaging of people cheering you on. Okay? I still had a whole bunch of Gen X shame. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Good for y'all. I love it for them. Okay. They were right. Because the longer you stay, the longer you're in it. Am I bonita, you guys? I had to put that back on because I had just put it on. It didn't last that long, but it deserved another go around. Okay. Focus, Rushy. Focus. Okay, wait, let me find my spot in my notes. Let me find my spot in my notes. Doody doody doo. Give me a second. Where am I? Okay, here we are. Here we are. Here we are. I put then eventually, once you have the stress harm cycle, then the relief happens. It's horrible, then it's great. They're confusing, then they're wonderful. They did right. They did. Tú eres bonita. Muy gracias. Okay. Um, you can start to feel like that feeling of relief is chemistry and love when you actually did not have repair happen because stress cycles and stress responses need to go through repair. Stress cycles have a repair. Um, that's a healthy response to a stress cycle. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I can in a different video, right? You can start conflating relief with repair, which I absolutely did. Okay. Relief only pauses persistent discomfort. The discomfort ain't stopping, it's just a temporary pause. And you start to think that that's repair because you don't know any different, or that mirrors what you grew up with because you grew up in a space where there was never any repair. There might have been a little dusting of relief, a little good day here and there, a little, was that love? Feeling. And so you actually don't know any better. And that is what I mean by intermittent and inconsistent reinforcement. That's what I mean, right? You're not rewarded every single time this thing happens. This person, this place, this thing, they're not consistent. It's just some of the times, like the slot machine, right? And the unpredictable nature of it strengthens the bonds, which is why gambling is addictive. It's literally addicting you to many things. But one of the things it's addicting you to is the chemical response in your body from the stress hormones. And the unpredictability makes those chemical hormones constantly present. And you keep trying to get that feeling of relief that you think is repair. You keep chasing that feeling and become hyper vigilant, right? About trying to figure out how to get that feeling to stay consistent because it's so inconsistent, right? Think about the person sitting at the slot machine. They start having all these like superstitions and girl, I don't know. They making up stuff. They have all of these ways they trying to figure out how to get the slot machine to work, and they just there forever. Same thing, except in a relationship. When care is inconsistent, your nervous system learns to stay on alert, right? And I mean, it. It's working as intended, okay? Remember in the movie, Ghost, Whoopi Goldberg's character Oda Mae? She said, "Molly, girl, you in danger." "Molly, girl, you in danger, girl." Or something like that, right? Your nervous system is working as intended. It's keeping you on alert because, girl, you kind of in danger, and you just sitting there, your hand on the stove, okay? Because you're used to it, right? But the good news is your nervous system is working as intended, even if it's cranked up and it keeps scanning and it keeps hoping that this time will be the time that it will become all of a sudden consistent. And it keeps trying to get back to the version of the relationship that felt good, even if that good was only for a fleeting moment, right? They treat you bad, they treat you bad, they treat you bad, they treat you good. Bad, 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 good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, bad, good, good, bad, bad, bad. And you're just like, wait, something's happening that makes the good happen. So you keep trying to figure it out. And over time, you start associating relief with connection. Over time, you start associating relief with connection. The calm after every single storm intensifies the bond and your perception of being close. And you begin to equate incorrectly, the absence of harm with the presence of love. So instead of looking for the light, right? I always talk about how things have a light and a shadow, right? Instead of looking for the light in the situation, you spend the entire time relating to this friend, this man, this place, trying to make sure you don't experience the harm. The whole thing is no darkness, but it's not light, right? The whole thing is no darkness. It's not light. When the feeling of repair happens over and over and over and over and over again, and you have come from a similar family system or had a childhood wound that mirrors that, you actually begin to believe that that is proof that the relationship is working or will eventually work. Will eventually work. One day it's going to work. If I do it right, if I show up right, if I contort, if I talk right, if I say the right words, if I have more empathy, more grace. A lot of church spaces are always like, "Have more grace," especially for women, never for men though. More. If I do this, if I do that, if I do right, a whole bunch of that is happening, right? And this, you guys, is part of the reason why a trauma bonded relationship can feel so effing intense. The b It's just I mean, when you are high, you are out of this world, okay? It becomes addictive, and most importantly, it becomes extremely hard to leave. Ask me how I know, okay? I'm trying to work on this, Marissa, damn it. Hello, Fleur-de-Lis, right? It becomes extremely hard to lead. Imma break that down. Imma break that down. I already told everybody Imma be here longer than an hour tonight, you guys, because I got a lot of notes and I gotta get this out of my head because this month I'm talking about creating your relationships. Creating your relationships, right? And I wanted to start with this. You're not in the relationship because the relationship is good. You're in the relationship because you are chemically addicted to chasing that feeling of relief. And that feeling of relief feels familiar because that feeling of relief is probably something that you got in your family of origin and you mistake it for love. Who said that? I said it because I lived it. Okay? And let me tell you something. Imma tell listen, the girlie out there that's like, "Imma figure it out. When I figure it out, Imma make it work." I was about to say, "Bitch, listen, it's my channel. Bitch, I figured it out, and I didn't make it work, okay? I shoulda gotten out without you don't have to figure nothing out. Figuring something out doesn't all of a sudden give you Camelot, okay? Listen to me when I tell you. You in there spinning, trying to figure out how to make this job work, this man work, this country work, this friendship work, this church work, when what you should be doing is getting the hell up out. Listen, SOS. Okay. I figured it out. I'm sitting here vocalizing it to you. Who said that? I said it to my I said it to my who said it, girl? Who said that aloud? It was me. I said it because 'cause I'm trying to help the people, okay? You are addicted to a stress response, and it feels familiar. Every single time you go through this cycle of harm relief, harm relief, harm relief, stress relief, stress relief, stress relief, all of that, and it's never that cyclical. It's harm, relief, relief, stress, 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 harm, stress, relief, harm, relief, 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 harm, 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 relief. It's that, right? Every single time you have that happen to you, you train yourself and you don't remove yourself. You train yourself to tolerate more stress. You become resilient in the stress response and the trauma bond because you have these brief experiences of relief, brief moments that you learn to perceive as connection and closeness. And every single time it happens to you, the attachment, the bond gets deeper and the relationship is getting more and more damaging, right? You're a frog in hot water getting boiled and you don't even realize it. You still sitting there with hope. And I'm not knocking hope. Listen, I had that. Listen, I'm telling my own business right now. Okay. One day, if you XYZ, then ABC will happen, right? And then they will LMNOP. And I'm gonna tell y'all this. The spoiler is unless that person or that place or that thing does their own work to heal their own trauma because a trauma bond is two traumatized things bonding. You're over here healing or not, or you're participating in the trauma bond. They are still traumatized unless they also do the work to heal their trauma. You got trauma, they got trauma, y'all came together, y'all bonded over trauma. If you are still acting in the trauma, they're going to respond with the trauma that bonded you. If you try to heal and they are still traumatized, the place, the person, the thing is still traumatized, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get a different outcome. Ask me how I know. So true. I wonder if many of us have trained ourselves with this trauma. Yes, I believe that it's very common. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this video because I feel like at this point in my life and my healing journey, I have the nervous system stability, feeling of internal safety, and vocabulary to express this and help somebody in a way that would have helped me back in the day. Okay. A lot of the videos that I make are with a much younger version of me in mind, right? So because relief feels good to you, feels familiar to you, and you like being intermittently flooded with stress hormones, it overrides logic, right? It overrides your memory and it even overrides your outside feedback. Right? You the part of your brain that makes thinking thoughts either never even had the healthy thought to begin with, or it's overridden by the stress hormones at this point. So you can't even remember, you can't make logical, decisions, choices. Your agency is shot because you're not dealing with logic. You sprung and caught up in whatever, okay? And you can't even take in outside feedback at this point. You're basically in a stupor of so I don't mean to laugh. I don't want anybody watching this to think I'm laughing at you because boo boo, I am you and I was you. Okay. I'm just further along. And so some of it is just me giggling at myself. Okay. And y'all know, as you can see by the almost 50-year-old woman who is surrounded by pineapples, I laugh at everything. Everybody can get these jokes, including myself. So please do not think I'm laughing at you. It's a very serious topic, but I struggle to be serious because I gotta laugh. Okay. So if you hear me giggling, that's part of what's happening, right? You are in a stupor. You have lost all access to the thinking thinker part of your brain. Prefrontal cortex, who? I love him. Literally said, I just said this yesterday about a coworker. Chaos, crisis, and drama creates this a type of energy that is addictive. Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't ever say it's not gonna happen to you because so many of us think it's not gonna happen to us until we come out of the stupor and realize we was right in there having it happen to us too. My God, on today. Ask me how I know. So oftentimes if you're watching my channel, you're smart, you're probably intellectual, you've done a lot of healing work, you're at some process in the healing work. You're not necessarily a beginner. I don't think beginners often watch me. Maybe they do. But I think a lot of times women who have started the work and are in process of creating the life that they love and using their healing to actually be applicable and integrate in their life are watching me. And you might know the relationship is hurting. You might know the job is hurting you. You might know this friendship is hurting you. I knew my relationship was hurting me. I knew it, and I knew it a long time ago, okay? I knew it a long time ago. You could probably name the pattern. You probably read books about it, podcasts, sat up underneath me talking all kind of stuff to you, and all of that stuff happened, right? And that ain't fixed a damn thing, you still there. Like, y'all, I pulled out tissue just in case I started crying on this video. I was not expecting to be cracking myself up. I am over here really laughing. Girl, you know everything. You could see it in other people. Ain't fixed nothing. Ain't fixed a damn thing. Why? Rushni, stop laughing at me and tell me why. I'm sorry, hun. I love you. Okay. I am you and I'm trying to help us. Okay. Follow me as I follow Christ. It's because your system keeps pulling you back toward the next hit of stress hormones that's brought to you by your favorite brief moment of relief. That's why. And that, my friends, is how a trauma bond works. It's not love. It's sad when you realize it because especially if it came from a family of origin, you have to sit in the realization that you may have never experienced healthy love your entire life. You went out of the frying pan into the fire. What the entire hell? Oh my God. And you're probably a person who desires love deeply. I do. And that realization is disorienting, right? It's not compatibility. Ain't no chemistry. This cortisol, girl. I mean, well, I shouldn't say it's not chemistry. It's chemistry. It's not the healthy chemistry. Okay, let me take that back. It's chemistry. You are and have been in survival mode, and it has been masquerading as attachment and attraction. Because when connections are inconsistent, you have learned to bond with a feeling of relief and not safety. And that, my friend, is why you are stuck. Because it sure was why I was stuck as well. Amen. Let me see what y'all Literally said I was her a few years ago until I went to therapy and recovery. And she's talking about the coworker who chaos, crisis, and drama creates a type of energy. Yes, yes. I think all of us, if we look back, I see a lot of people on the internet judging people up and down about things in this space, staying in a relationship, staying in a job, stay and listen, I understand that it's frustrating. I get it. I'm not saying that it's easy to sit there and watch somebody keep boiling themselves in a pot of foolishness. But at the same time, I think I have some grace for it because as I said, I can't sit there and be like, "Why you hell on leave?" when I've been married for a long time, y'all. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Marissa says, yes, highly intelligent, but also highly traumatized. Absolutely. Because trauma has nothing to do with intellect. And trauma I've told you guys, I had my IQ tested unbeknownst to me during the ADHD evaluation. Apparently, I'm smart as hell, and yet here we are, okay? Fleur de Lis said, "You can laugh at old mess as we're healing and have healed." I laugh at I know I can get when I was laughing during my watching my father's funeral, sitting in my living room watching my dad's funeral on YouTube because the borders had closed and I could not get home during the pandemic, they wouldn't let me in. and I had to watch my dad died before I could go see him, I tried, and I sat in my living room and watched my father's funeral, and I was cracking jokes then. Girl, I knew everybody could get these jokes, okay? I'd be in the hospital with my son, in the ICU, jokes coming up. Listen, y'all should be shocked when I'm serious. The fact that I can sit here and do all this serious conversation with y'all should be astonished, okay? Because my heart is jokes. Amen. Victoria Allen said, "So we're basically addicted to stress in its various forms." Yes. In the simplest form, yes. And I'm not trying to shape stress. Let me jump out and jump back in. I'm not trying to shape stress as a negative thing. Obviously, having a stress response is a positive thing. You're not supposed to be persistently in stress responses with intermittent reinforcements. That's the thing, right? When you put your hand on a hot stove, the stress response keeps you from burning yourself up. If you couldn't feel that, you would burn and die. You would get an infection, your hand would die, right? I have a son who does not have neurological innervation in the lower parts of his body. And so I always have to be very mindful about whether or not he has a cut, a bruise, or anything, a scrape on the lower part of his body, because if he gets a cut, a bruise, a scrape, etc., he doesn't have a stress response. He cannot feel that. But that will still infect him and he will die. So the stress response is very, very necessary for human functioning in a healthy way. But when you are having persistent and inconsistent stress responses, that's where the unhealthy pattern develops. Okay. So now I want to talk about reframing the idea of attraction, what you are drawn to. Okay. Who puts a quiver in your liver? Okay. Attraction is not about preference, right? Attraction is also not logical unless you do some healing work, and then it can become more logical, right? It's not just vibes. It's not just the way you make me feel. It's not just that, although that is part of it. And surprisingly, attraction is not just desire, right? At least not specifically the way we've all been taught to understand desire, which is what you want. Yeah? The rom-coms, when you grow up, the rom-coms and the TV shows and the streaming shows, they make it seem like it's just this wave that comes out. You know how you go to church and they make it seem like the Holy Ghost is just this thing that you just it's uncontrollable, right? I was Gen X rom-com. I just believed I grew up watching all the movies and just believed in that it was just a quiver in my liver, okay? Quiver in my liver. Just not even realizing that what was quivering in my liver was cortisol. But anyway, amen. All right. Unhealed attraction, you guys, is a nervous system response. Who said that? Unhealed attraction is your nervous system responding, right? The human body is always constantly scanning for what it feels is familiar, because familiar helps you survive, because in your mind, something that's exactly the same as what you know helps you predict the outcome, and therefore you are safe, right? You go out into the bushes, you see the red berry keep you alive, blueberry killed your neighbor. Don't eat blueberry, eat red berry, right? Familiar means safe, means survive. That's what you think, right? It also means that what you are attracted to don't give a good goddamn if it's healthy, if it's aligned, if it's safe, if it's good for you now, or if it's good for you in the future. It literally does not care. It goes with what is default and what is familiar every single time, because that is your shorthand to survival. I'm talking about pre doing the work, unhealed attraction. Okay. That means, like for me, okay, stress and inconsistency and unpredictability, emotional distance, and feeling like you have to earn something, love, figure it out, were part of your, possibly your, definitely my early experiences growing up, right? And you now feel like that's familiar. Even if you can't articulate, I could not articulate any of this back in the day, which is why I feel like this video is so important because when we go forward and we learn how to spot and speak a thing, I believe, at least for me, it is my duty to send up the flare for those who might be experiencing it but don't have the words. You might not be able to articulate that all of this stuff feels familiar to you and that you grew up in it. And therefore, if you don't hear from me or people like me, you start to do what I did, which is read those things as chemistry. The rom-com said you're supposed to feel something. You feeling something, all right, okay? That's why I put on the thumbnail of this video. And when I tell you I made that thumbnail and I chuckled and I screenshot that thing and sent it to a couple of my friends and said, "Man, I'm about to have a time talking about this." Okay? That's not chemistry. Boo boo. That's cortisol. Mm, that's cortisol, and that's a lot of future therapy bills. But that wouldn't fit on the thumbnail. Okay? Now, what is cortisol, Rushni? Ha ha ha, but help me. I got you. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Okay? It helps to keep you alert. That's basically, which is why I'm like, it's neutral. It's not bad, it's not good, it just is. Cortisol helps you survive. If you didn't have cortisol, you would not be awake right now looking at me, you'd be sleeping. You'd be sleeping, right? The good thing, the great thing is cortisol is supposed to be in your system. For example, if you look at people's stress hormones levels in the morning when you wake up, your cortisol actually starts rising before you wake up. It's part of what wakes you up if you have healthy stress responses, et cetera, et cetera. Part of why you might not feel awake in the morning when you wake up is your cortisol level might not raise, right? So you might still feel groggy because you haven't gotten the spike of the stress hormone that wakes you up, that keeps you alert. That keeps you alert. So when your cortisol levels are healthy, it's doing good stuff for you. There are times of the day in a natural circadian rhythm that a human person in the meat suit needs to have cortisol, okay? Or else you're going to feel like you're dragging. Yeah? And that's great. But, boo boo, when cortisol has been a part of your attachment history, you begin to conflate stress with desire. Sorry for that face. I just played back what I said to myself and was like, "My God, on today." Mm. When cortisol, the stress hormone that keeps you hypervigilant and alert, constantly scanning, has been part and parcel of your foundational attachment history, you begin to confuse and conflate harm and stress with desire. So you feel drawn, you feel activated, you're obsessed. You feel pulled. You're so in love. Oh, I gotta have this job. This friend is so important. Oh, and you think that's chemistry. You think that's love, right? Ask me how I know. When in reality, what it is your nervous system responding to something it recognizes and feels familiar. That's what it is. And I'm so hoping, like I told you guys, I am gonna go long. It's over an hour right now, and I still got more. I'm gonna keep going. I am really hoping that breaking this down like this is gonna help somebody in a way that I wish this was broken down to me, right? In a way that can be understood. Intermittently being flooded. Oh, you know what? I hope you can hear me, girl, although, like I said above, the person who needs to hear me is intermittently flooded with stress hormones and overriding her logic, and she might not be able to hear outside feedback, but I'm trying. I'm trying, girl. Girl, wake up. Girl, I'm trying. Okay. So anyway, all right. You heard me say that when cortisol is part of your attachment history, you start to confuse stress with desire, right? Your early relational experiences teach you what closeness is supposed to feel like. And if closeness in your family of origin or wherever your foundational relational attachment things form felt like unpredictable inconsistency, a need to perform, a need to hide yourself, all of these things, anxiety, then you associated those things with relationship. And that is literally what happened to me. It took me years of therapy, years to even realize that's what happened to me because from the outside looking in, somebody who did not experience that could probably name it objectively very quickly. And if I looked at somebody else, I probably could see it in them. But I am inside and the eye does not see itself. And if that's all I knew growing up, that's all I know. Right? That's all I know. So it took me years of therapy to realize that I had closeness intermingled with inconsistency, unpredictability, right? Performance, anxiety, and the like. I didn't know. I did not know. If you had asked me back then, I would have told you not so. I would have told you not so, but very much so. And then what happens is you learn that survival skill, you learn that association with closeness and relationship in all forms, and you take that decision making and those choices and that lens and you bring it into adulthood and it persists. It continues to show up in your adult relationship, right? It could look like the relationship moving real fast or feeling super intense or swinging, like I said, in that relief stress cycle where 1 minute you're close, next minute you're distant, right? You are steeped in anxiety and you don't even know it. That's one of the things. You guys, listen, you guys have watched me heal in real time. I was so steeped in anxiety and I did not know because everyone around me, family of origin and places I had chosen were also steeped in anxiety because I was unaware that that's what they were. It wasn't until I started doing my healing work that I started to be like, a lot of angst like, it felt like an energetic shift almost, right? When I started to heal, I could sniff out anxiety because I was peace walking into anxious spaces that used to feel familiar, and now they weren't. I was like, "What's going on here?" They hadn't changed, I had. So I didn't even realize that that was what was familiar to me because that was the ground I was grown in. You see what I'm saying? And so you might have you might be somewhere in your healing in a similar place where you don't even realize. You don't even you know something wrong, but you just can't put your finger on it, and it's because the fish can't see the water. You can't see it, girl. Excuse me. This is sparkling water. I'm trying not to burp in the microphone because I'm a lady, okay? Oh, I forgot I can mute. Wait, wait. Oh, that was such a dainty way to burp. I'm a effing lady. I forgot I could mute you guys. Okay, okay, okay. Let me get back to my notes. Focus, Rusty. You're trying to help the people. You're trying to help the people. Okay. So this thing shows up in your adult relationships because you're used to it. You're addicted to it, right? You have cycles of anxiety, stress, relief, et cetera, and so on and so on. And not even knowing that you're addicted to the chaos, you are drawn to it. It feels familiar, right? Even though you're not getting your needs met because you never did get your needs met. That's the part that's heartbreaking. Once you start doing this level of healing work, you realize you were drawn to the chaos and you never got your needs met. You were always chasing a job that would see you, a friend that would, a man that would, right? Because, and it didn't happen in the family. It didn't happen now. One of the more heartbreaking and devastating realizations that happens on this journey. And if it's any consolation, it happens to us all. I'm still standing and I'm cute and I'm wearing one of my favorite two-piece sets that I stole from my neighbor. Okay. Life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. Okay. You will survive it. I'm a living witness. So you're chasing this attachment style in the same way that you had to change your primary relationship where you form the attachment style. This is making me sad, and that is true, and I'm happy I now know. It is listen, this is real work. I know I could come out here and I could goof off you guys, but I have been through the fight. I'm not even that churchy anymore, but every once in a while I gotta pull out a churchy thing. I've gone through the fire. Mhm. And I've been through the flood. If y'all only knew what Rushni was doing back here, okay? I've been broken into pieces and I'm still cute. Amen. So, Tasha, all I have to say is two things can exist at the same time. Relationships are, and so are emotions, very complex things. You can feel grief and joy at the same time. Everything has a light and a dark side, and we are often taught to avoid the darkness. And what I have learned about healing is sometimes you have to face the shadow. Part of the healing is integrating the darkness, not ignoring it because it's not all light. And the resilience that you learn in life is not to just brace yourself constantly for assaults of the darkness and avoid the light. It's to metabolize the shadows, learn from them, see them, and still be able to curate safety and peace and experience a flood of light. That's the journey that I'm on. And I'm not saying I'm there, but I'm encouraging you that that's what's on the journey. So it's not even about not feeling sad. I'm not saying you didn't say this. I'm just saying it, to anybody that's listening as well as you. Sadness is part of your integrated journey because you are a human being and the emotion of sadness is a viable one and a valid one for not getting your needs met. So feel sad. Do something to process the sadness, metabolize the sadness, express the sadness, own the sadness, sit with the sadness, feel the sadness, cry it out, sleep it out, dance it out, scream it out, but don't ignore it. Marissa says, how much trauma could we have been spared from if we knew this early on? My God, on today. I was just talking to a coaching client recently and she expressed something very similar. And it was in a very, yours is very neutral. Hers was very like judgy. Like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I do something different? And I'm like, no, no, not on my watch. Like Ayanla says, because and I'm not saying you said this, Marissa, but I'm saying one of the things that, let me see, one of the things that helps me get through that feeling of like, man, I really could have avoided so much of this if I had XYZ earlier. Yeah, like all of that kind of thing is I think, you know what though? The Rushni that existed before me did the best she could with the information she had. She helped us, meaning her, and I survive. And she got me here. I'm never gonna knock her. Girl, it took you a long time to get it. I'm not saying you, I'm saying me. I'm saying me. I flip through social media and see people dragging people for staying a quarter of the time I've been in this situation. Okay. They'll drag you all up and on the timeline. I don't drag myself. Okay. You know why? Because I'm 49, looking like 30, whatever the people thought. Okay. And I'm cute and I'm getting out. I'm doing it right now. It's never too late. It's never too late. If you woke up and you have breath in your body and you learn this information, you can still do it. That's the message I would say to anybody who has that thought, because it's an absolute thought. I've had it. I whooped myself. I have self-flagellated to and fro back here many years ago in that same pool, and that thought helped me, um, made me stay. Okay? Thank you, people. I'm always gonna stop for a little. I'm taking these braids down, but I'm gonna keep them up so you're gonna see them, okay, miss, tomorrow. I'm keeping them up just so I could go to the thing and then, and then and then I got to take them out my head because I got whatever, okay? Okay? I'm gonna be cute doing it. That's what I'm trying to say. Y'all know I have multiple depression diagnoses, and I done fell off plenty of time, but when I tell you I bounce back up, it's like I wake up and I come to myself, and I be like, "Oh, hold up. Oh, oh." The devil thought he had me. They thought he knocked me out. Didn't knock me out. I'm still here. Okay. And it's hard, but I'm doing it. Okay. Let me get back to my notes. Let me get back to my notes. I wrote here, so you're chasing your attachment in the same way you had to chase it in a primary relationship, in a childhood relationship. And that's heartbreaking. And the whole thing is feeling super familiar to you, even if you don't have the words to articulate it. Because you learned, take a breath, That love was conditional. And to stay connected, you had to adapt, stay alert, stay woke, keep your head on a swivel. Okay? Endure, wait, and try harder. And when you think about it that way, you realize that there are so many places that Black women exist where that is the messaging we get. Try harder, endure, hustle, struggle, wait. It's going to get better later. So don't knock yourself, Black woman. If you took the very persistent messaging that you were given internally in a family of origin situation and or externally in a system that benefits from you being in that state and you applied it to the people, places and things in your life and you endured and you waited and you tried harder and you took on the labor of fixing it, right? Don't knock yourself. Think about that. We have all got that messaging. So, you learn that when relationships feel uncertain, you don't even panic right away because it's almost expected. And when there's a problem, you actually lean in because you're the fixer. I did that. Oh my God. Okay. I just had an experience this morning where I was at the coffee machine outside in my apartment complex, and there was a guy, and he was talking to me about whatever, and I mentioned to him about, we were talking about dogs in the complex, like cute dogs, whatever, whatever, we're talking about dogs, okay? And I mentioned to him that I grew up with big dogs, right? I grew up I had a Doberman, I had a German Shepherd, well, my family had it wasn't just me. Doberman, a German Shepherd, a Dalmatian Pit Bull mix, right? So I am not afraid of big dogs. I don't care how big the dog is. I think the dog is a fur baby, and I speak to it and treat it as such, okay? I was on a walk several years ago, and a large dog saw me and started barking and running toward me, and when I tell you I stopped that dog in its tracks because I was just so happy to see the doggy that I think the dog was confused. The dog stopped mid bark and run and just looking at me like, "Girl, why you not afraid of me?" And I was like, "Because you're a baby, a big fur baby." I would probably be an amazing, like, pet sitter. I just haven't been able to do that, okay? I see something like that, that somebody else would be horrified at. People have legitimate fears of dogs, big or small, and my nervous system is so used to it, I even have affection for it. I'm perfectly fine. It's like that. Right? It's familiar, and the familiarity in relationship is not desire, you guys, it's just memory. Your nervous system is used to it, and you are repeating something you learned. If you have not done any work to correct a unhealed attachment style, you are defaulting to what you learned. That's not chemistry, right? And this is what I've learned. In the hardest way. Ooh, I just felt my tear when I said the hardest, the tear ducts went, "Eh, eh, eh." That's why I pulled out the tissue because I was like, "Am I gonna cry or am I gonna cuss?" Because I do cuss. I feel like you guys have realized that lately. I can cuss up I'm a Virgin Islander, okay? Cussing is our norm. I was trying not to cuss on the internet like that, but I've been letting a few of them fly lately, okay? I was like, "Am I gonna cry? Am I gonna cuss?" Apparently, I've been laughing, but when I just said the hardest way, my tear ducts just activated, and I was like, "What was that?" We'll see, right? I'm cute, so do I wanna be crying on the internet, though? Because I don't this is a snotty cry, we don't want it. Okay, vanity just hit me. I'm also vain, so I just had to get right I was like, "Do I wanna be crying, though? Or do I wanna be cute?" Cute for 500, Bob, okay? I learned this lesson the hardest way, okay? And I'm sharing it with you slow and low like a crock pot. This live is a crock pot of wisdom so you don't have to now I can't listen, I can only lead you to the water. I cannot make you drink. Okay? You could lead a horse to the water, you can't make it drink. You can lead a woman to wisdom, but I can't make her think. I'm trying though, boo boo. Okay? This is what I learned. Connection does not require chaos. Hey, sis, your job does not require chaos. Friendships do not have to be chaotic. Your relationship does not have to be a pot of confusion. Your church situation does not have to be stress inducing. This is why peace feels boring to so many people because your nervous system is aware that you are used to one thing and you're trying to break a cycle and get free from it and used to something else. So chaos is actually your first language. You are frequent in chaos and peace is your second language. So you keep defaulting back to what you learned, craving what you learned, going to your cortisol strewn default, right? And peace has not been something your nervous system has learned yet. Yet. Heavy on the yet because it's learnable. It's not immediate. Can't be because you didn't pick it up immediate. So you can't put it down immediate, but it's possible. And even worse, knowing better does nothing, absolutely nothing. Marissa and I talked. What did you say? Let me go to Marissa's comment. You said something earlier about, yes, highly intelligent, but also highly traumatized. Intellect don't got a daggone thing to do with it. That's the part that's wild. And that's the part that really makes the smart girlies beat themselves up because we be knowing better, right? It's nervous system awareness that is necessary, not intellectual awareness. I knew better for years. And yet here we are, okay? But we making it happen. Amen. I've had decades of therapy, you guys. It helped me immensely, not knocking it. Very necessary to the journey, but I was still stuck. I went to church every Sunday, served in all of the things, read my Bible. Y'all just heard me say I had 8 billion Bibles, okay? Including the one on my phone. Studied all of that. Did what they told me to do. I was still stuck. I knew my attachment style. I knew his attachment style. I know my diagnoses. I knew his diagnoses. Still stuck. I could probably name every red flag. Still stuck. I could see it in other people's relationships. Matter of fact, I've helped 2 or 3 people have pretty long, happy, healthy marriages with their spouse. I'm talking 10 years, 20 years. People I hooked up in college, okay? Help people navigate all kind of chaos and patterns in their relationships, in their families, in their I'm a coach. In their partnerships, in their friendships, at their workplaces, all of it. And I'm still stuck. I was still stuck. And let me say this, I have actually found out in later, and this was super helpful, that a lot of times people who are in helping healer professions can have this happen to them because it's part and parcel. It's all the same thing that makes them pick a person, place, or thing that needs healing and fixing, right? A healer type of energy and a immature healer energy, which is a fixer. Because you're not supposed to be fixing nothing, but you don't know the difference when you're immature, right? The same thing that helps you pick the immature, unhealed workplace is the same thing that help you pick the immature, unhealed friendship and the immature, unhealed, like whatever. And then as you mature and as you learn and you go into the profession, you realize, wait a minute, I'm in the mess. I have actually noticed that. I've seen a lot of coaches, therapists, and all these people on the internet really telling it. And I'm just like, oh, thank God, I'm not the only one. Okay. Right? I had all of that information. I was still stuck. So knowing better don't have a daggone thing to do with it. I was still drawn to emotionally unsafe people, places, and things. And you might be too. You might be too. right? That's why I needed to tell some of my business in this video because it was really gonna land the plane. Because talking around it just wasn't gonna make it do what it needed to do. I'm trying to help somebody and I'm trying to get somebody free. If this video gets one woman, if I could help somebody as I travel on, then my living shall not be in vain. Right? Right. Okay. So if you're beating yourself up right now because you feel like I know better, 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 and you feel like you're in a stupor, you feel like you're in a stupor, right? Before I had the vocabulary to say what was happening, way back in the day, I used to say, "It feels like my brain is shutting off." Those were the words I had. "I feel like my brain is shutting off," or "I feel kind of floaty." I don't know, like, it was like I would get disoriented and check out, and I'd be like, "I don't." It's like I couldn't get access to the front, and I didn't even understand parts of brain, nothing. I just used to say, "I feel like my brain is shutting off," right? I later learned that that was my dissociation, which I've told you guys a million times was my coping mechanism of choice, and that I was losing access to my prefrontal cortex because I was in the part of my brain that was fight and flight and the stress response. I just didn't know that. So my brain was kinda shutting off, like, in a weird way. Brain match, I was just thinking of that song too, Glamazini, with my dad saying, "Then my living shall not be in vain." Can I sing? Don't matter. It's my channel. I don't know if that was pleasant, but it's happening. I hope this video is helping y'all. Listen, okay. Because when I get off here, I'm about to go finish watching up this last episode of The Ball Brothers. Let Tony and Kevin get me to giggling uncontrollably. Okay? Because that's where I'm at right now. If you're beating yourself up because you feel like you know better, especially if you pride yourself on being a smart girly, I it could be that you're addicted to the stress chemicals, and the stress chemicals are legitimately shutting off access to the part of your brain that helps you, executive function and make rational decisions. That could be what it is. It might not be, or it could be. Okay, it probably is this. It probably is, okay? So don't beat yourself up is the point of what I'm saying. Don't beat yourself up. I have learned this, that being self-aware um, lives in the thinking part of your brain. And attraction is not in the thinking part of your brain unless you train it to be there. In the default, attraction is in the body, right? And your nervous system responses. And you have to learn how to bring it and incorporate the thinking part of your brain through more repetition and experience. So before you can explain what's actually happening, you are, and you're growing up, you're already recording the patterns of perceived closeness and unhealthy intermittent attachments. So don't beat yourself up, right? Even if somebody else is beating you up, they don't, they don't know any different. That's why you always have to have somebody who is more trauma informed because they are going to come at you with a lens that can actually help because shame and blame never gets a person out. It never does. If it did, church spaces and all these places that operate in shame and blame would work more. They would work better. Right? So knowing better doesn't automatically mean that you rewire your desire and attachments. You can know better and still be attached and drawn to unhealthy things. The part of your brain that is spotting all of these negative things and helps you understand what is unhealthy is not the part that's governing what you are drawn to. You have to retrain that. I'm literally in that season right now of retraining what I am drawn to. Like, as I sit here with you on my healing journey, which is why I never say healed. I don't ever say healed, ED. I've seen people be like, "You ain't healing no more. Stop healing." I am healing. It's a constant journey because I'm always discovering things about myself. I'm not making it my whole personality. I probably went through that season too. But once again, I'm in that season. Okay. So if closeness once came to you with tension and inconsistency and emotional work, you felt like connection was all of this hustle and struggle and whatever, your job and your friendships and all of that, right? Then you probably associate that very same thing with connection. The Bell says, um, and when you said we could be trauma bonded to our job, mhm, abso-freaking-lutely, I was. Okay. I was like, "Whoa, that's a revelation. Thanks for this live, Glamazini. Take good care and see you in these YouTube streets." Thank you for being here. Absolutely. You can be trauma bonded to a church space. You could be trauma bonded to a family. You could be trauma bonded to a friendship. You could be trauma bonded to a country. Listen, a lot of us trauma bonded to this country. Black women, but that's not what this video is about. SOS. I was just watching this video from this, YouTube channel. Her name is Cynthia Graham. She is a licensed therapist and coach, and her YouTube channel is Healed is the New Sexy. I think I put it in the information box already, but if I haven't, there's a there's a piece of dust that's just flying. If y'all see me just personally focus. I be in here forgetting that I'm literally live on the internet, just chasing a piece of dust. Um, she had a video. I think I put her channel in the information box. That's what I'm saying. I've really been getting into her on YouTube. She's great. And I just found out right before this that she's a breast cancer survivor, like literally right before this live. And I was like, really, girl? Anyway, she did a video, and the video was called Why Self Aware Women Still Choose Emotionally Unsafe Men. Great video. Goes a whole lot more deep into what I'm talking about. So I feel like I linked it below. And if I haven't, I will go back and link it so you can check it out. Yeah. Okay. Insight does not mean that you integrated anything into your life. You can know I know people in my life who are ministers and pastors and presidents and mothers and therapists and mentors, and their lives are a mess. In the back, they can tell everybody all the right things, and they have not brought it from the brain, embodied it, and are actually living it. That's why when people are talking the talk, I don't actually I mean, I'm not saying I don't listen to people who only talk the talk because there's you can glean, but you have to have discernment, and discernment for me had to be mature. My discernment was not the best in certain it was great in certain spaces and not great in other spaces. But when you walk in the walk and talking the talk, then I'm really gonna perk up. I'm gonna perk up for real because if your walk match your talk, okay, I used to be a person that totally discounted people who could talk the talk, but they had not walked the walk. I realized that there is some discernment in that. But, integration does not happen just because you have insight. Knowing does not mean you are doing. Being able to explain something does not mean that it stopped influencing your behaviors. Matter of fact, so many of us, Black women, we are so smart. I love us for real. We intellectualize everything to hide from embodying our feelings and processing and metabolizing things fully. Um, and I talk about this a lot. We stay in the head and we never let it fall into our body. You can go into your therapy session and you can tell the therapist everything that's wrong with you and you can vocalize it and whatever. And there's no embodiment. You have not processed it. You have not metabolized it, as in used it as fuel to learn from, feel, let your body sit in it for a second, get the good things out of it, remove the waste out of it, and um, emerge out of that chrysalis of experience into the new evolved version of you. Haven't done any of that. You just up here in the head watching podcasts and reading books. And so many of us do that. And I'm saying that because I did that. And I can still do it if I don't remind myself that life is not about figuring everything out. Life is about living, right? It's about being in your life, not studying it to try to keep yourself safe from inside of a place, hiding from everybody else, figuring everything out. That's not a thing, right? So I said a lot of us use intellectualizing to hide from embodying our feelings and processing and metabolizing them fully, and that's why we can help other people. We can be people's pastors, people, a president of this organization and that organization, a podcast host, a mother, a therapist, a mentor. And yes, our lived lives are chaos embodied, and we are genuinely confused as to how we got here, right? That is how we get to your run of the mill Captain Save-A-Ho, which I was. It's a way of distracting yourself from your own life and what you have to deal with in your own life, right? And striving to earn your worth by saving other people. Ask me how I know. And listen, this is the plight of a Black woman in America. We are all kind of taught to do this in church spaces in America. It wants to build everything on our back every way. So we got it honest. I'm not shaming us or blaming us. I'm just pointing it out. Okay. I'm just pointing at it. It's right there, sis. Okay. So you guys have literally been sitting here all these years watching me heal in real time right in front of your faces. And if you paid attention, or if you have a high perceptive sensory bent to you, you've probably noticed some of the shifts. I know I have. One of the things I notice is when I come on here and I tell y'all that it's the smooth jazz version of Reshni. That's because there's a peaceful, less performative, chill ass version of me that shows up. And it's not that the like bouncy, hyper, goofing off version is not me, because as you can see in this video, she keeps jumping out. That's me as well. Both of us are here. And no, I do not need the paddy wagon to come. I know I'm one person. I'm just using that as a metaphor to land a point, okay? And because my mission, the reason I get up in the morning is because 'cause I'm a Black woman healing and I create humor-filled healing spaces to help other Black women heal, amplify their gifts, and create lives that they love, that while they love them back, I decided to share this information with you because I feel like it will be helpful along the way. Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit, but not too much. What I've learned. Here are some signs that you might be in a trauma bonded relationship. I'm going to share some signs that you might be in a trauma bond um, romantic relationship, a trauma bond friendship. You might have a trauma bond going on in a family dynamic, in your workplace, in your spiritual space, in your listen in the country you in. Okay, sign number one. If you are rationalizing harmful behavior, you might be in a trauma bond. If something about you needs to excuse or justify the fact that this person has caused emotional, financial, spiritual, relational damage, has not made an effort to repair anything, mature, grow, heal, and is just a bull in a china shop, and you keep excusing that, you might be in a trauma bond. If your job keeps making promises to you and doesn't keep, you might be in a trauma bond. If you got demoted, your money got robbed, people talking about you behind your back, just craziness at the job might be a trauma bond. If that friend of yours is a monitoring spirit who talking bad about you in her stories with her close friends that you're not in, yeah, listen, okay, that's sign number one. You rationalize harmful behavior. Sign number two that you might be in a trauma bond is you feel intense guilt for wanting to leave even when staying is costing you your peace. The feeling of guilt is interesting because guilt is like the feeling that you did something wrong. You know, like when you go to court and the judge says the person is guilty. So guilt is like an interesting feeling because you have an intense feeling of you're doing something wrong by wanting to leave. And a lot of that could be because you were exposed to so much messaging of, there's this good job or this good man or like, well, it's not that big of a deal. All your friends do that, right? And so you have this chemical response, even though staying in it is obviously costing you your peace. You might be in a trauma bond. Okay. Look, what does it say? You can be in a trauma bond with an app. I actually got to the highest level of Duolingo and quit it because I just didn't like one, it felt anticlimactic. Two, I was like, there's no higher for me to go. And I didn't feel like it made me any more conversational. And it was ruling too much in my Sundays, I think it was, like, when the timer would go off, but I am in a very healthy bond with the Finch self-care app at this point, okay? And I have a 400 and something day streak, okay? And that is not a trauma bond, Ashley. I don't know what you and Duolingo might I do miss the little purple, teenager character. She was my favorite. I forgot her name. I do miss her, though. Tell her I said hi if you see her, okay? Sign number 3 that you might be in a trauma bond. You feel responsible for fixing or saving another person. Who said that? Captain Save-A-Ho. Who said that? You can't say that. You can't say that and did. Okay? You might be in a trauma bond if you feel responsible for fixing a person who has taken no responsibility for healing themselves. Your job is not to fix other people. I told you, an immature healer often goes in and conflates healing and fixing, Marissa. Okay. They go in thinking it's their job to fix, and rightfully so, because they had to externally help regulate dysregulated people when they were growing up, probably. Okay. You probably grew up around people who couldn't regulate their own emotions. So instead of being big girls and big boys and showing you healthy regulation, you had to mature and come up and regulate these jokers. So now here you go, walking around trying to sweep up the crumbs out, finding every broken thing on the side of the street and thinking you got to fix it. That might be a trauma bond. Girl, that is not love. That's not love. You can't save anybody. Take black woman, take your cape off. Matter of fact, you're gonna save somebody. Jesus saves. Save yourself. I feel like I said that on a video recently. One of the videos recently. Nobody's coming to save you. Save yourself. Yeah. Stop trying. Matter of fact, you're probably trying to save other people because you aren't willing to look at yourself. This was part of my journey. Several years ago, when I picked my word of the year, the word that I decided to pick was mastery because God told me to worry about myself. Oh my God. Don't ever spend a year focused on self mastery if you are Captain Save a Ho, if you don't want to be tossed to and fro. It was And I was making videos that year, and I told y'all about it. I was like, "What's going on?" I was distracting myself trying to save everybody else because I had so much muck going on in my own world. Anyway, sign number 4 that you might be in a trauma bond is you believe that your love will eventually change them or somehow snap them out of it. Just saying that aloud sounds wild. You believe that there's something that you have to do that will eventually cause them to change or they'll snap out of it and you'll eventually get to have a consistent experience of what you perceive as repair, but is actually just relief from harm. Like they're not loving you, they're just not hurting you. Sign number 5 that you might be in a trauma bond. You excuse or justify repeated hurtful actions, both to yourself and to others. You have seen this person be an ass to you and to other people to the point that you can't even defend them anymore. You be wanting to defend them, but you can't. So when other people dragging their name through the mud, rightfully so, because this person is probably harmful, not just to you, but just a bull in a china shop, harmful to everyone around them. You just sitting there thinking, I can't even defend you good because I kind of agree with what the person is saying, but you don't snap out. You might be in a trauma bond, boo boo. Number 6, you are walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring your words and your behavior to avoid conflict. That's a trauma bond. You know why? Because growing up around unstable, emotionally dysregulated adults who externalize their regulation needs, typically to other adults or to children, means you go out into the world, you pick an externally regulated dysregulated adult to partner with, or a job that feels like chaos in your nervous system, or a friend who ain't checking for you, but it's just a pot of chaos and confusion, right? And you are used to tippy toeing around them because you have to do the tippy toeing to externally regulate this grown ass person. You tipping around your words because you don't know how. Yesterday you said strawberry and strawberry didn't set them off. But today you said strawberry and now they losing their mind like they're a giant baby because they are a giant baby because they have not learned self-soothing techniques of an adult. So now to avoid conflict, you don't know when you're going to ever get into a conflict because this person has not learned how to self regulate. And I'm not saying that you can't help regulate. That's co-regulation. Co-regulation is coming alongside somebody, providing safety for them to co-regulate. That is normal. That is human. But externalizing your regulation and operating as though you are a giant baby with a tantrum and having people walk on eggshells around you so that people around you are constantly monitoring their words and their behaviors just so they don't set you off, that is a trauma bond. That is a trauma bond. They're not loving you, they're just not hurting you. Exactly. You have not experienced any light. If you really looked at the relationship, what you are having is your options are harm or no harm. Harm or no harm. You don't ever get this. Safety, love, consistency, reciprocity, warmth, affection. You can exhale. You never get that. So the whole relationship is just this. Stress, relief, not repair, relief. You just here with it. Ain't never had this. Didn't get it from your mama, didn't get it from your daddy, ain't getting it from your boo. Okay, ain't getting it from your boss, ain't getting it from your pastor, ain't getting it from nobody. Ask me how I know. Hydration. Sign number 7, you might be in a trauma bond. The relationship cycles through the intense highs and devastating lows that I told you about. And you feel like when you reconcile, it's euphoric, but you realize what I just shared, which is you've never literally had healthy repair and mature, secure repair. You just keep going from they're harming me to they're not harming me, but they're never loving you. Sign number 8 that you might be in a trauma bond. You isolate yourself from people who tell you this person is crazy or who challenge something about the relationship. And Imma tell you something. When I thought of this one, I was looking at a paper to see some of the signs of this, and I was like, "This is a cool one." I was gonna erase this one, but it's not something erasable because it's true. I was gonna erase it because I was like, "I don't feel like I isolated myself. I don't think I isolated myself at all." But I think the way it showed up in my world is I would like, in a relationship space, I would, if somebody expressed challenges and I had decided I was gonna stay in the situation, I just wouldn't bring that part of it up to them. So it was like selective isolation on my part, where some people do fully isolate. So if you're fully isolating, you are in a trauma bond. That's a trauma bond. Okay. Sign number 9 that you're in a trauma bond. It erodes your self-esteem. You start to uh, doubt your own judgment, especially if you're an intellectual girly who knows better and who is helping other people. When you are helping other people get great results in their on their job, in their relationships, in everything, and your stuff is just a mess, you're just like, "Am I okay?" Like, your whole sense of self starts to get a little wonky because 'cause you're just like, "Hold up, what's going on here?" That might be a trauma bond, okay? If your self-esteem has been eroded and you have been doubting your own judgment. Sign number 10 that you might be in a trauma bond is that you confuse intensity with love and relief with intimacy. That's what I was talking about you never get over here to the love, care, the good part of it. You're never in the light. You're just over here in the harm me and not harm me and not harm me. And you confuse that feeling, right? Sign number 11, you might be in a trauma bond is um, people, places, things keep making you promises that are broken and you don't leave. Listen, this current administration is a trauma bond. They be just saying stuff. Listen, that man told people he was going to build a wall. He told people he was going to get Mexico to pay for it. That man he told people he was going to drain the swamp. Meanwhile, he is the swamp. He told QAnon. They told QAnon that there was a cabal of elite billionaires running a PDF file ring. Wasn't that what Pizzagate was? Anyway, I don't know how I got over there. Although relationships, this includes relationships with your janky country. But okay, let me get back. Sign number 11 is promises are made and broken and you stay anyway. Sign number 12, the idea of leaving feels terrifying, empty, and unbearable, even though you are deeply unhappy in the situation you are in. And part of that has to do with the stress hormone and the feeling of it being pulled, like you coming asunder, right? Your sense of identity is wrapped up in this whole situation in a way that is biological as well. You might not know that, and that's why it feels that way. And sign number 13 that you might be in a trauma bond is that you anticipate an immense amount of shame and blame if you leave from outside sources that makes you actually stay because you don't think you can handle the shame and the blame that's gonna come at you, and it's disorienting, and so you stay. Let me tell y'all a story. This is how I know I'm healing in a place that I never have been before. So a few weeks ago, I was sharing with someone who I am working with uh, some stuff that's going on in my world right now about my separation, specifically so that they could know how it might impact our work together. Yes, yes. Okay. And this person had some clue of what was going on, but I was just giving them like a little bit more information on some timelines and things like that. And I'm not going to give the whole story, and we have landed the plane. It has been repaired in a healthy way. Okay, so don't worry about it. But I do feel like this is indicative of one of the things that people are afraid of happening to them. And it happened to me right in my face. And this is how I know that I'm at a point where I could share more because this person, with all positive intent in their mind, said to me, I thought you were smarter than that. And when they asked me why my relationship had gotten to where it was. And I briefly responded with trauma, which is the overarch. I didn't really feel like giving much more. I didn't really feel like giving that much more. But trauma was the answer, right? They would not take the word trauma as their response. And when I tell you, they said so many harmful things to me that they have since apologized for. They listen, when I tell you they because in the middle of the conversation, I was like, hey, 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 halt. Okay, but could you imagine? You might be in a trauma bond if you anticipate intense amounts of shame and blame if you leave from people externally and you don't think you can handle it, so you stay. I told that person flat out during that conversation, things like that are what made me stay back in the day. Anticipating that well meaning people would say stuff to me like, I thought you were so smart. You're so wise. Ooh, ooh, ooh," would have just detached me from the thinking thinker of my brain. I would have had a stress response that probably harkens back to something from my childhood, and I would have went back in and tried to make it happen. I'm not telling you that sign number 13, which is a sign that you might be in a trauma bond, right? That you might be scared of anticipating shame and blame. I am telling, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and be like, "Oh, nobody's going to shame you and nobody's going to blame you." Of course they are. They coming, girl. I don't mean that to scare you. I'm meaning to say that when you are going to leave a janky friendship, a janky job, a janky country, a janky man, a janky woman, I don't know what you into, a janky church, somebody is going to come and shame and blame you. It's not about whether they come into shame or blame you. Whose life is it anyway? And like I said, that person eventually came out once they realized what they had. It was kind of funny, actually. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of funny because they kept trying to fix it and it kept making it worse. And then and I kept halting them the whole conversation, and eventually I got a full out mature adult apology with a whole bunch of other stuff I'm not gonna go into, but it was very good apology. But also, sign number 13 that you are in a trauma bonded relationship is that you are anticipating shame and blame is gonna come at you, and you think you can't handle it. And what a healed person does is realize that the shame and the blame from external noises is going to come up anyway. Girl, go live your life. Get out of there. Run. Okay. Whose life is it anyway? Get out of there. I have been young and now I'm old and I never seen the righteous. Hallelujah. That's not what I was going to say, Marissa. I got off. I've been young and now I'm middle aged, masquerading as young. Okay. And one thing I know to be true is I had thoughts 10 years ago that I was too old to do things that I was not too old to do because I'm doing them now and I'm 10 years older. No matter how old you are, if you are alive, awake, and conscious enough to be listening to me on your cellular, tablet, and or laptop, desktop device, projector, or television, you can change this. Period. Shame or blame from external people be damned. You can learn how to maneuver through your life and turn the volume down on well meaning or not well meaning external voices. And that, my friend, is part of growing up. Okay, once again, this can happen. Trauma. So that was 13 signs you might be in a trauma bond. Okay. Trauma bonds, once again, to wrap it up, they form because of unresolved attachment wounds. When care is inconsistent and your nervous system adopts to keep you alive and survive, it was working as intended. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you as a child. And I'm so sorry that we went through that. Okay. But girl, now you cling into vapors. Mhm. You got a lot of hope with no evidence for that hope. You are waiting on something that you've actually never experienced. If you know anything about the sunk cost fallacy, it's like when you press the button on the elevator and you're waiting and it doesn't come and you keep thinking, "I should take the stairs," but the minute I walk to go to the stairs, the elevator is gonna come. And so you think you it's when a person it's when you're reluctant to abandon something, like a strategy, a course of action, a person, a job, whatever, right? Because you feel like you've already invested in it so heavily, even though cutting your losses and getting out of there is beneficial to you, and obviously so, you still wanna stick it out, right? Or you're enduring. You are enduring. Let me tell y'all another story. I, grew up in church in the Virgin Islands, and then when I came to the States, I backslid and had a good time for a few years, and then I ended up at a non-denominational church with my husband for 20 years, right? That ended at the pandemic, not because I wanted to end it. The pandemic, the church shut down, and I had some experiences, and I've never really been back. I've physically been in the building a few times, but I've never been back as a regular member for reasons, okay? That's the long short. When I was still a regular member, nearing the end, coming up to the pandemic, I shared with one of the pastors on staff at our church what was going on in my relationship that was, you know, the trauma pattern and, um, I don't wanna go into it too much, but, like, I shared some of the negative things happening in my relationship with one of the pastors on staff. I specifically shared it with this specific person because they are a trained mental health professional, and I was hoping that that person would be able to use that training, right, to advise me, right? Because that's kind of the teaching that you have in church spaces, but I'm also a very mental health advocate, trauma informed type of girly. So I don't just need no untrained person hooping and hollering and telling me a bunch of foolishness when you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So I went to the mental health professional and I brought it to that person. And that pastor, knowing the harm that I was experiencing, told me, well, maybe you're the person that can teach people how to love someone that fill in the blank. So maybe you're enduring was what I was trying to say. Because I was sure told to endure. Is that not a long suffering message? Suffer long, Rushni. I hear that you're being harmed. I hear that it's eroding you in ways that I can't imagine. But maybe you just need to endure, wait it out, wait on the Lord and renew your strength. You'll mount up with wings like eagles, girl. So the message of endurance, right? And all of these things keep your body in a state of familiar stress, familiar anxiety, familiar hypervigilance. Wow, a pastor who's a mental health professional. That's what I'm saying. I had had a lot of counsel from previous pastors in that space who were not trained in any of this stuff, and okay. So that's why in one of my last ditch situations, I was like, "Let me go talk to this person." But, sometimes people, listen, humans are still humans. Mental health professionals are still humans. I'm a certified coach, and I am a, advocate and I am a lover of intellectual pursuits to help myself and others, but I do not have any mental health licensure. I am not that, and I have never purported to be that. However, I surround myself with people like that in those spaces because we are drawn to each other. We are all healers. We are different versions of healers, right? And you learn pastors are just people. These are, these these are just people, right? And so that was what I got. I got a message of endurance. I did not get a message of remove yourself from harm. I got a message of learn how to endure under the harm you're experiencing from a trained mental health professional, right? Okay, so I want to say this real quick. Y'all know I love to talk about identity, right? In a trauma bond, your identity, which is the answer to the question, who am I, fuses with the relationship and leaves you and leaving the relationship can feel like you're losing yourself or you're being annihilated. Right? Meaning you don't know who you are. So you get your sense of self, your sense of self-concept and who you are by fusing to this unhealthy attachment that you did as a young person. And then you meet somebody out here and you do the same thing. And that's part of also why leaving feels like you're ripping a body part off because you do not have a healthy sense of self. And so your identity has fused into this unhealthy bond with this person or this place or this thing, right? You find a lot of people who, um, if you've never experienced a trauma bond, which I don't know how people can't do that, but whatever. Listen, I feel like my whole thing is a trauma bond, but somebody has it, right? I always think, how can people be so judgy? Maybe they've never experienced this. So that's what I think. The people who I see who are extra judgy on the internet, I always think, well, maybe they've just never experienced it, or maybe they have experienced it and they just don't realize whatever. They haven't come to their senses, right? So if you have never experienced a trauma bond, you could see somebody who you think is smart, who you think and they're in it, and you're just like, why are they in that? She knows better than that, right? And you're just like, just leave. And they can't just leave. They can't just leave the job. They can't just leave the man. They can't just leave the church. They can't just leave, right? And you're just like, what is going on? Why can't they leave? Right? You might even be thinking that to yourself. Why can't I leave? Okay. You might be thinking that to yourself. And as wild as it may seem, I am here to tell you that it's because who that person is fused to the harm. So leaving that space without any support, any information, any help, any healing feels like they are being ripped apart and dying. Because if I'm being real honest, it actually is kind of like a rending asunder. Is that a word? Tearing asunder a previous identity to make room for a new one. Like a version of you kind of does have to die so that you can discover or rediscover or create who you are becoming. And some people just are not equipped for that yet. And they also don't have the vocabulary, the awareness, and the consciousness to even know. All they know is it feels like they're dying. So that could help you a little bit, especially if you're looking from the outside in, or especially if you're experiencing that feeling. You're like, why does it feel like this? Right. But you kind of do have to die a little bit, sis. You got to die a little bit. But there are ways, I'm here to tell you, there are ways for you to work toward learning what you need to survive and thrive. Amen. Ask me how I know. Okay. I'm sitting here right in front of you. This is why external support is necessary. A lot of, I shouldn't say, oh, I don't know. Somebody's probably done it without external support, but I'm gonna say it's necessary to break a trauma bond because it's not a mindset issue, because it's not an intellect issue, because it's not a knowledge issue, because it's not a matter of time and it'll all just settle itself out. It's a nervous system issue. It's a support related issue, right? All right. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to see if I should. I told you guys it was going to be long, but I knew it was going to be long, but it's okay. It's okay, right? So I know you're like, Rashni, how the hell do I get out of this? Okay. First of all, I'm a stranger on the internet. Okay. I am a stranger on the internet that's about to go make a sandwich and watch Kev on stage and Tony Baker talk about stupidness. You know, if you watch the Bob Brothers on Tubi, you guys, if you watch the St. Louis show, my nephew and I are on the front row and you can see us. You might not be, he's sitting next to me. I am the 6'1" tall chick. Hair is just like this, not this set though, a different set. Exactly this hairstyle in a giant zebra print maxi dress. You can't miss me. And I was bonita. Okay. I didn't even know they were doing that. I was watching the show and I was like, wait, St. Louis, that's us. Hey, it's me. I'm there several times, laughing, mouth wide open, full teeth. Okay. Full teeth. Gonna go out there and finish up. Okay. So, first of all, Rashni, how the hell do I get up out of this trauma bond now that you done needed me like dough? Okay. First of all, I hope this has helped somebody. I'm listen, I done told y'all more business tonight than I done told y'all in years, okay? I made a video many years ago that I was team tell some, keep some over a decade ago. Y'all thought this was a game. I ain't lying to y'all. I tell y'all and I keep some. I tell some and I keep some. So I am still working it out back here. So don't feel no kind of way if you just like, girl, I gotta get out. Exiting a trauma bond does not start with having more willpower. It starts with, you ready for this? Being honest with yourself, with yourself. Exiting a trauma bond starts with being able to, as Ayanla says, call a thing a thing. Remember I told you about the signs you was in a trauma bond? Girl, if this person makes promises and don't keep them, you gotta be able to say that and know it with a period on the end. If this person is a pot of confusion, you gotta be able to know that and say it with a period on the end. If this person has never loved you, all they did is not harm you and harm you, you gotta be able to say that. If this person being around this person activates your nervous system and makes you judge your doubt, your judgment, doubt your judgment. If being around this person necessitates you isolating yourself from other people who love and care for you and are giving you good counsel, you got to be able to be honest about that. If you are walking on eggshells and constantly monitoring what you say and do to try to avoid conflict, you have to learn to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to name what is happening to bring clarity to the chaos. And that is so hard. Trust me, I understand. Okay. And then from there, it's optimal, right? That you begin to reduce or eliminate access to the person, meaning get the hell out. Okay. No contact if possible. Now, I have not been able to do that. Okay. I have a son who is 13 with special needs in my marriage, and that has not been something. And that I'm not going to lie, you guys, that has made it much more difficult. So if you are planning to exit a trauma bond, the best course of action is to cut it. You need to cut it. Okay, no contact. Need to cut it or reduce access as much as possible, if possible. Okay. The next thing you need is external support. I told you that it's very rare. I can't imagine breaking a trauma bond without some sort of licensed mental health professional in your back pocket. I can't imagine. Okay. I have figured out a lot of things on my own, but it's taken a long time. It's been a lengthy thing, and I've had a lot of mental health professionals and other people in my pocket. You need support. So you need to curate, you need to get it, you need to rebuild it, you need to build it. You need somebody to help you because as you can hear, if you are all this way in this video, especially if you're on the replay and you hear all of this, you're in it. You can't get out of that on your own. Okay? And then then the next thing you would have to do once you have support and you can be honest with yourself and you can sit in the nervous system activation that happens when you're honest, because let me tell you something, spoiler, one of the reasons why you can't be honest is because you can't handle the nervous system activations when you actually let reality be reality. Like you tell yourself the truth and it just sends you off kilter. And so you do all of this stuff to soothe yourself in this unhealed way. You got to be able to call a thing a thing. And then one of the things that's most powerful, and it is why this gives you guys so much more insight into why my coaching is built on a foundation of identity work. You have to reconnect with who you are, or you have to discover it if you don't already know, right? You have to, because to rebuild and to exit from a trauma bond, you have to be able to have something to go in its place, and that something to go in its place is a healthy and more centered sense of self-concept, self-love, self-respect, or else you're just going to remove that and you're gonna get out of that job and get into another crappy job. You're gonna get rid of this man and get to another. It's out of the frying pan and into the fire. So you have to connect with yourself and do some identity work and figure out how to answer the question of who am I outside of the roles that I play with other people's lives, in other people's lives. Yeah? So anyway, I'm gonna say this again because I know it's on somebody's mind. You did not stay too long, sis. You stayed as long as you specifically needed to learn your unique lesson. I don't care what anybody says to you, right? And learn to operate with yourself with compassion, right? Not shame, blame, or punishment. Because it is very possible to learn how to gradually stop living in survival mode and to reclaim your choice, your agency, and your life, right? You survived. That made me tear up a little bit. That made me just, whew, you survived, girl. That job didn't take you out. That janky family of yours didn't take you out. That funky friend didn't take you out. That toxic partner did not take you out. You survived. You may have adapted in a way that was not the healthiest before, but it still got you here now. And you always have an opportunity to learn to trust your signals without staying stuck in old patterns. So even if it feels like you're stuck, hopefully something in my voice is letting you know you're not stuck. You're not stuck. You're not. Because girl, if I can be, hey, I feel great. The video's still up, Rushdie. Because if I can do this, you can do it too, right? You can teach yourself. You can get help from others. You can make small steps. Who you are drawn to does not have to be the end of you. What you are drawn to does not have to be the end of you. You can learn to stop being drawn to harm and be drawn to safety. Ask me how I know I'm doing it. You can learn how to choose yourself without having to prove yourself constantly. And when you do, what I've learned is that relationships don't have to be like a puzzle I'm constantly trying to solve or survive, right? They start to feel like mutual care, respect, and peace, like rest. They start to feel like safety, right? They feel like they slow down. And I'm not saying that like I'm in a not a romantic relationship, you guys. I am still married. Okay, so I'm just talking about friendships and spaces that I choose, any way that I'm drawn to something. Your nervous system is not always so activated, and you start to operate from a place that feels more settled, right? And aligned and supportive. And it feels strange because in the past you would have called it boring, but that's because you were addicted to the chaos. Okay. And you and I deserve to experience love, work, friendship, community like that in the lives that we are creating. Yay, we made it. Okay, so if you guys want me to do a video a little bit more in depth about how to break a trauma bond, just let me know in the comments. Um, if you're watching on the replay too. And for the majority of people, it absolutely will require the support of a trauma informed professional, right? I can share from my own lived experience as well as working with hundreds of Black women as a coach and helping them heal and create lives that they love with intention. So just let me know. Okay. If you want to work with me as your coach, you can do so by visiting www.glamazini.com/coaching. Link is also the top link in the bottom to find out different ways that you can work with me. My Create Your Life virtual planning retreat starts again in June. Let me put up the little banner. Okay. The next cohort starts on June 5th. Create Your Life is not just a planning retreat. It's a reset. It's group coaching. It's everything all in one, okay? If you need to hop out of a survival pattern and start actually making intentional and deliberate decisions from answering the question, "Who am I?" then you should come join us, right? The December cohort is already going. Ladies, I will see you this Sunday for co-working before the Super Bowl, and then next Sunday for our next accountability call, okay? I have to post the stuff in the things. I'll send you an email. I'm coming, okay? The June cohort um, will be another opportunity for a week of self-paced planning information, that is then followed by so that you can create your season with intention and not just default to things. Have somebody help you. And then they get, let's see, 9 monthly accountability calls that help you actually live out what you planned. If you are interested, you can look it up at bit.ly/virtual planning retreat. You can also find it underneath the glamazini.com/coaching, along with other ways that you can work with me. And that's it. Thanks you guys for rocking with me. I knew this was going to be a long one, but I really felt like I had to talk this one out. Okay. And for obvious reasons, you know, when you have lived through something, I just felt the praise. I'm not even that churchy anymore, you guys, okay? I just felt something on that, and you know you can help someone else. That's why I wanted to take my time, okay? So anyway, you guys, be well, be encouraged. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know if you watch on the replay, and I'm gonna go finish watching The Ball Brothers and then get I think Tahir has a, comedy special on Tubi. I got the Tubi, so I gotta dig into Tubi and see what's out there. Okay, be well, be encouraged, you guys. Keep creating a life that you love, that wildly loves you back. Amen. Amen. Here's the pineapple. Bye, y'all. Bye.